Schweikofer. I'd like to call the City of Ann Arbor Housing Board of Appeals to order, please. Can we have a roll call?
Hello, Kristen.
Hi, Glenn.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. My apologies, long overdue. I haven't attended an HBA meeting since I've been here. I've been quite inundated with all kinds of other things to handle, and I've had my deputy handling that. But I just wanted to introduce myself for a moment and go over a new standard that we're going to have to do with the open meetings. So, hello, I'm Glenn Dempsey. I'm the building official here in the city of Ann Arbor. I hope we can all meet sometime in a more formal hearing in person. And just wanted to say hi. There is one other thing that I wanted to bring to the board's attention. There was an open meetings ruling that took place and is now effective as of April 1st. And when doing roll call, you'll need to, you can advise that present and you're remotely from whatever location. That's a new requirement. I'm not sure why they put that in place, but that'll have to take place during roll call. With that, Deborah, was there anything else that I might add to that?
No, that was the big one.
So you can say my name and or your name that you're attending remotely, and it's from Scion Township or actually Ann Arbor Township or wherever you may be. So, with that, I guess I'm going to turn it back over to you, Kristen. Hopefully look forward to meeting you all down the road. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Glenn, and thanks for that reminder. Deborah, do you normally call the roll?
I can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll start with yourself, Kristen Schweikofer.
Sure. Present, attending remotely from Pittsfield Township, Michigan.
Angela Rasmussen.
Present, attending remotely from Ann Arbor, Michigan. City of Ann Arbor, I guess I have to say.
Okay. Lisa Steltler.
Present and attending remotely from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Jerry Schulte.
Present and attending remotely from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Do we have Tim Durham? He's absent. And for staff, I have Glenn Dempsey
Here,
in Ann Arbor.
remotely from, yeah, I'm in Ann Arbor today.
Okay. Brandy Lewis.
Present remotely from Adrian, Michigan.
Michael Redmond. John Reiser.
Present, Scioto Township.
Staff Brandon Boggs.
Present, here from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on. Item C is approval of our agenda. For the board, we've received a copy of the agenda. If you could let me know whether or not you would like to make any changes or approve as is, I would entertain that motion.
Make a motion to approve as is.
I second it.
Thanks, Angie. All in favor? You have to do a roll call, right? A roll call vote on this?
Now we can just do a voice vote.
A voice vote, okay. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Agenda is approved. All right, moving on to public commentary. Any members of the public that would like to address the board can do so now. They would have up to 3 minutes. If you're an appellant, you'll have your chance during your appeal. Are there any members of the public that would like to address the Board of Appeals?
I see no one in the waiting room.
All right, thank you. We'll close public commentary. Moving on to approval of minutes. We have the Housing Board of Appeals minutes from May 12th of 2020. It was a long time ago, but they were sent out. Hopefully everyone reviewed them. I would certainly entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the meeting on, what would you say, 2/20?
May 12th, 2020.
May 12th, 2020.
Thank you. And I'll second those. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, minutes have been approved. Moving on to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business before we get to new business? I'm letting it linger because sometimes it's tricky to get unmuted, but I don't see anyone chomping at the bit. Okay, we will move on to new business, which is HBA 21001, variance for 566A Kellogg, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48105. Could we have the staff report, please? Who's giving that today? Is that
Hi, Kristen. I will be giving that.
great? Thank you.
So the applicant has applied for an appeal with regards to the ventilation requirements under our housing building code. And give me 1 second here. So they request a variance. We have request for ventilation requirements. I will tell you that there was in the inspection, there was light and ventilation indicated. However, light does not need an appeal as they can provide proper artificial lighting. The ventilation requirement of 4% of the ventilation of floor area for the habitable room has not been met. I will tell you that the building was built accordingly. It did not meet the requirements under the code at that time, which was actually 10% requirements. So somewhere in the process, it missed that requirement. They are now appealing our 4% ventilation requirements that's under the current code. As I might mention, and I'm not sure what you're used to or what you've experienced in the past, as this is my first time to the HBA. You have a standards for approval, and they require, you have three options: practical difficulties or unnecessary hardships, or the variance does not violate the intent of the chapter, and the variance does not jeopardize public health and safety. So the recommendation is probably seen in your notes there. Staff recommended that the variance not be granted as there are alternatives that, if implemented, would meet the requirements of the building code. Ventilation to the area. As I had mentioned, this building was built back and was under the codes back when the BOCA days were involved. And it was required to be 10% of the area and was not built appropriately. Unfortunately, we're here at this time frame, and that would be staff. Staff would not, let's see, one moment. So staff would not recommend leaning away from this and would recommend denial of this, as there are other options to create that 4% requirement. I'm all set, Kristen, if there's any questions on that.
All right, thanks, Glenn. Does the board have any questions for Glenn or staff?
I have a question for Glenn. Was a calculation performed to see how close it is? I think on the applicants, they gave dimensions that I don't know if the city agrees with, from which you could calculate the percent ventilation based on square footage, but I wonder if that was done by city staff.
It was looked at, and while it seems like it's not that much, it actually is a fair amount. It wouldn't be a requirement of a whole nother window, but it'd be a much larger window than what currently is in place.
Okay, can you tell on a percentage basis though how close it is?
You know what? I do have the inspector in. Brandon, do you have any comments on that?
I notated it as being 2 square feet short.
Yeah, thank you.
And you, Glenn had mentioned some relatively easy fixes. So ventilation, I'm just curious what that would look like in that room. That window looks like it kind of splits in the middle at a mansard roof. So I'm not sure if you're talking like a wall ventilation that would go out into that mansard and down into the soffit, or, and I know it's not your job to design it, but I'm just curious, typically what would be done in a situation like that to provide some kind of powered vent.
So there could be a possibility of a couple options. One would be bringing in fresh air from the outside, of course. Location, I'm not sure exactly where that could be placed appropriately, but I will tell you that another option that would probably work would be a continuous working bath fan, which brings in, we'll move that air around and take care of the issue. That would generally be designed by, the mechanical contractor would get involved with that type of situation and could provide the documentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. That was one of the questions I had as well. Any other questions for staff? All right, I think we have the appellant here, and we received your appeal. So do you want to give us a little bit of information about what you're appealing and why? Please introduce yourself and provide, is it your address that you normally provide, I think?
Yes, location.
Okay. I'm Marnie. Do you mean my address of the property or the address where I currently am?
I think that could be where you're currently located, and then if you want to give the address of the location of the, for the appeal.
Okay. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I'm Marnie Smiley. I'm in Chicago, Illinois, and my property is 566 Kellogg, Apartment A, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48105. And I guess the reason I'm applying for a variance is, in looking, well, I guess I have a few things on my mind, but, there's 29 other renters who have the same, that are in the same complex, and all of these buildings are built exactly the same. There's 64 units, and there's 29 other owners that are also renting their property, and no one's made any structural changes to the outside of their property. So I did talk to my person who works in my house, as well as someone who, would help me on the mechanical side of things. So someone more than my standard person. And, putting a window in there, putting a larger window just isn't going to be possible according to our bylaws of the condo association. The other thing that we tossed around is a skylight, which is another way, I guess, sometimes these things are solved, also not possible. So that brought me to applying for a variance, which is where I'm at now. My question here is, it's there's two large rooms upstairs, one of which, I've always just considered them both bedrooms, but I've always just lived there as a single person, occasionally with a roommate. But I've never rented it out to more than two people. And I'm wondering if it's just a one bedroom, like that this other room is just in another room as well. So I don't know. I guess that's all I have to say.
All right. Thanks, Marty. No need to be nervous. I know it's all over screens. It's a little bit tricky, but given that you're in Chicago, this probably works out even better for you.
Kristen, this is Lisa Stelter. Can I say something as a real estate agent? And I've sold several of those units back there, and they are originally, I believe, designed as apartments, and then they were converted to condominiums. It seems to me like they at one time were all rentals, and I'm wondering why this applicant is having to make a structural change like that when we know that, I think if you talk to the association, because I just sold one over there, I think that there are 22 current rentals out of the 62 units right now, and nobody else is having to do that.
And I guess I'll bring that back to staff and through the rental program. Glenn or Brandon, if you can address that question.
So Brandon, I'm not sure if you were involved in any of the other projects. I'm unaware of it. I will tell you that it was not built appropriately to the code at that time. While it's not there, it doesn't give us allowances on you as a renter to go forward when I'm aware of it and became aware of it with my inspector finding this issue. There may be non-structural allowances that could be done to correct it. And that was the mechanical continuous fan for a bathroom that brings in additional air or moves air. Or the other thing, while I understand the windows themselves are difficult and you may have an issue with your association or management company, I think you have other options that might be available. Yeah, and to be honest, I would not be going back trying to enforce code on other properties. As you had mentioned, there are several that may have the same issue.
28 other properties are being rented out
Correct.
that are exactly the same as my unit.
No, I understand that. Unfortunately, we're guided by our housing and building codes when we become aware of them. I'm not sure what took place with regards to these other units.
I looked up a lot and it doesn't seem like anyone else is applying for the same kind of variance. So I don't know, it's my feeling.
I'm sorry, it's Lisa Stelter again. Is there no fan in the bathroom currently?
I don't believe so. I honestly don't remember. It's been like a year or two since I've lived there.
A question for staff, would a fan in the bathroom be acceptable, or would that have to be located in the bedroom?
No, I think a continuous operating fan in the bathroom would most likely meet those requirements. That's something for the mechanical contractor to figure out, but I believe that we've had that situation happen in past situations like this.
I'm sorry, I don't know what a continuous operating fan is. Will you explain that?
So in more of our modern homes, newer homes, when you go in, you have a light switch and you have a switch that turns the fan on. A continuous working fan would not have a switch. It would just always be operating.
Okay. Unlike an operable window that you can close and have no ventilation, correct?
Correct.
I have a question about that just because I also manage a property in there and I've managed 2 at a time in there that have always had the C of O. So I understand the frustration because I've never been cited for that. Pretty sure there is a bathroom fan in there. I would be concerned about a neighboring unit, may or may not be a rental, if that fan causes any noise situations, because sometimes when you have a neighbor, if that fan runs continuously, that might be an issue. Just to not throwing it out there to create more drama. It's just that if it runs all the time, it could bother a neighbor because there's usually at least 1, if not 2 adjoining units in those buildings.
So I do understand. Again, there are code requirements, whether they were fully met or not when it was constructed. We have noise requirements or sound transmission requirements in the code. Hopefully those have been met. If they weren't, I'm guessing that we'd be getting complaints or calls that people can hear the people next door.
Right. Do we know if any of the other units have this continuous fan going right now or have had this requirement?
I'm unaware of any, not knowing.
Okay.
I mean, I looked up as much history as I could on the other units, especially the ones that I know that are rentals. And I don't see any additional applications for this kind of variance. So, I mean, I'm not, I can't know everything, but from what I can tell, no.
With the associate, do we know if the association, since they won't let you change the windows, will the association allow for a continuously running fan to be installed?
I don't know. They're fairly big sticklers on a lot of things.
Yes, I know. I've received several in email.
So
That's why I was bringing up the noise complaint.
yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, the neighbors around me, my current renter is a widowed, like 60-year-old woman, and then the person next to her, my neighbor, is probably about the same age. Like, so I don't have any other information.
Okay.
And I'm assuming from the floor plan that was designed and intended as a bedroom from day one, correct? This is a 2-bedroom unit, probably taxed that way as well.
Correct. And Jerry, these were apartments managed by Wilson White for years.
Okay.
So they've passed these rental inspections probably for, I don't even know.
I think they
Many years.
converted to, they were allowed to be converted to condos in 2000 or 2002 when I look back at how the deed got transferred.
Are the windows original as far as you know?
Yeah, the windows, I mean, as far as I know, every unit is, like, I went to every single unit that would be equivalent to mine, and they all still have the same setup, and they all still, like, look the same as mine. Because, I mean, we can't make changes. I actually called the folks that run the property management yesterday just to kind of hash through, like, what are the options, and none of those are the options, so.
Thanks for that discussion. I as a regulatory professional in my kind of day job, this is particularly tricky for me because I really strive to see fair and equal application of rules. And, it sounds like we have a gap in our knowledge in terms of like how many others may or may not have, if they've been altered to have these fans or not. So that's certainly a question I think it's important to answer because I do want to see that. On the other hand, when we know of a problem, saying nobody else has done it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't want to make corrections where we can. So I'm a bit torn on this one. I have to say, normally these are pretty straightforward. And so.
I mean, it's been 20 years that it's been potential rental properties. It seems like it's one of the first times it's come here. No other units had to go through this. And I've never rented it out for more than one person. So I can't really tell them where to sleep. I mean, I personally slept in the room that qualifies for the light and ventilation when I lived there. This person chose to sleep in this other room. So it's never been treated like more than a 1-bedroom. And this other room has just been used for an office. That's what I used it for.
Question, Marta.
Staff, is it an option to just list it as a non-sleeping bedroom and approve it that way without having to approve the variant, I guess, is the question.
That may assist a little bit. I'm not sure if we've had some of those in the past similar to that request, but it's definitely requires a certain ventilation in there, and if it's not met, if it's not occupied, would be a thing. Possibly other options, although they take other consideration into place, whether the room was had a closet added. I mean, there are other ways to possibly make it. Not that that would be a requirement, but that's something else that might come up. But the room as it is, whether it's a study or a bedroom or whatever would still have the requirements for the 4%.
Right.
So regardless of the usage, it has to have the ventilation.
Glenn, do you mind if I chime in on this a little bit?
Please.
So my name is John Reiser. Hello, folks. I'm a relatively new city attorney, and I have on one screen the Munich Code where it talks about what the standards are. So under 8, section 502, it does talk about minimum standards for light and ventilation. And I don't know if you have that in front of you, but for ventilation, it says every habitable room shall have at least one window, sliding glass, ... The total area for ventilation shall be at least 4% of the habitable work floor area of the room served. And they do talk about you being able to do mechanical ventilation in lieu of natural ventilation, if approved by the building official as affording ventilation in accordance with the standard ventilation requirements in the mechanical code. So I don't know if that's a ceiling fan, or I don't know if that's a continuous fan, and I would defer to Glenn Dempsey for that. But with respect to the definitional aspect, 1 through 26 of 8,500, it does define what it is to be under paren 14 habitable room area, enclosed floor space used or intended to be used for living, sleeping, cooking, or eating purposes, including bathrooms, toilet compartments, laundries, pantries, foyers, corridors, closets, storage spaces, areas where there, have you seen all this? Maybe you have this up in front of you, or maybe you don't. Under 8500 paren 14, it defines what it is or isn't. So I would urge you to apply the standard or apply the definition in 14. Whether you approve this or not approve this is up to you folks with the criteria you have in front of you. But I wouldn't go on defining what habitable room areas are when the ordinances have done that for us.
Right. Well, from the applicant standpoint, if I were the applicant, I don't know that I'd want to limit myself or what I could do in that unit from everyone else in the complex, through some agreement here. So, and I do understand the frustration that presumably plans were submitted to the city. This was approved, with a higher requirement. And apparently it's been approved for years. And now this applicant appears to be the first one where this has ever been questioned. So, would certainly understand the frustration in that case. I have a question for the applicant. The dimensions you gave on the windows, the 19.25, the 67, the 29, were those overall, were those glass dimensions? Do you know or recall?
I think they were just the glass. My handyman gave them to me.
Okay.
I can probably give you some more context around it here in just a second, though.
Because I just did a quick calculation based on that and the square footage and came up with ventilation of like 3.9 square feet. And I, by my meatball calculation, it was like, 77%. So 2 square feet seems like a ways off, but it may not be if those are based on glass dimensions and these are based on like, overall opening.
I know that he had a discussion with Brandon so that they could clarify what that meant, because this isn't what I do every day, so I don't really know.
Sure.
So maybe Brandon can provide some background to it, because they came to some kind of agreement on what it meant.
Brandon, would you like to comment on the window measurements? What was open and was used?
I'm trying to look up my notes. I don't have everything in front of me, but typically when we measure out the room, we get the square footage, we measure up the window, and by the clear opening definition, we break that down into square footage of what's missing. We usually don't do it by percentages.
I know that my guy's been, he specializes in working with rental properties, and he's been doing this for 40 plus years. So I would think that anything he put together, and that Brandon's worked with him on a number of other projects, would.
I do believe we ran the numbers together and we both came up to about the same thing.
Okay.
I I have a general question that I should probably know the answer to. I know that there's a cost for the variant. And I wonder if the continuous ceiling fan wouldn't be less expensive, or will they have to pay the cost for the variant and get the continuous ceiling fan together? I guess what I'm trying to figure out is what's the out-of-pocket cost for Marnie on this situation?
I already had to pay
Ballpark.
the 500.
Okay, so you had to pay the 500 to be heard, and then there'll be, if the fan is a way to approve the variance, then there'll be the cost for the fan too, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
I have a quick question for the applicant. This rental unit has been unregistered and has been posted since August of 2020. So I'm just curious on why now you are asking for a variance when it's been close to a year of not going through with any of the inspection requests.
I had quite a few things that needed to be taken care of. You know, we had a water line issue. We had to put a screen door in instead of the glass doors that are standard. And I had a lot going on with like COVID things that just kind of took my energy away from this. So this just wasn't as big of a priority for a minute.
These have been difficult times for everybody.
But I did take care of everything else as they came through. This was just the hardest thing because I had to go through this process and I wasn't exactly sure what to do.
This is Kristen. I was just wondering if there's no other, when we do inspections at this, because it sounds like there's 60 some odd units here and there's 20 some odd renters.
There's 64 and then there's, according to when I talked to the folks yesterday, there's 29 renters.
Sure. So a number of those, I would imagine, are in the rental inspection program.
Some of them are, yes.
Some of them
Not
are.
all of them.
Right? We know that not everybody always is under all the regulations, and those are inspected regularly, but and they all have the same size windows. So I guess I'm trying to see kind of just again how things are being applied, and I just want to make sure that we're being consistent in that. And I know that that's a difficult question maybe to ask right now. So if that's something that staff need time, we could certainly, you know, kind of postpone this conversation and decision until we can get some more information. Because if there's, you know, and I wasn't able to, the condo association information wasn't included, so I wasn't able to see what some of those rules or regulations might be. Because again, I think if it's a building code issue, I would certainly urge all of the units to somehow be notified and bring things up to code wherever possible, right? That's the ideal situation. And certainly I think this starts that conversation, but I'm just trying to get a little bit more information and background as we proceed.
Yes, we can look into it further to provide documentation and maybe communications as necessary to go to the structures there.
It appears that I only see 4 that are certified.
But I would think that let's not conflate the issue of whether renters know they have to get a certificate of compliance and the inspections on a 2.5-year basis versus whether or not this applicant before us under 8500, what you need to do is, you know, maybe ask about the practical difficulties or the undue hardship, if financial, or discern whether or not it violates the intent of the chapter, which is spelled out in 8500 to protect the health, safety, general welfare, to protect the housing stock from deterioration, and low cost to the renters and the housers. So, you know, you've got the code that spells out what criteria, the intent of that code, and then you can apply the facts as you garner them from Ms. Smiley and her application and her photos, and from Brandon and from Glenn, and then make your call. And you guys are doing all that, but
Thanks for those reminders. Those are helpful.
It's about protecting the health, safety, and welfare. It's about protecting the housing stock from deterioration. It's about providing housing stock at the lowest cost to renters and the owners, and then apply whatever it is for 3.97, 3.87, and make your call one way or the other.
Right. Is there a requirement for how far a window opens in terms of being operable? So for example, if this entire window tilted out 6 inches from the bottom, would that be considered operable and provide the full area of the window opening?
Yeah, I believe that we're measuring window opening. So if it opened more than what it does, that would be part of the, that would be part of the equation.
I don't think that we can make changes to the outside of the building like that. At least that was my understanding in talking to our association.
Sure, your association, but your association, you might just tell them that they've now are aware of a code compliance issue with every one of these units that they probably ought to be disclosing, that residents ought to be disclosing when they're selling their property. So that might be an incentive to get them to agree to being a little bit more flexible.
Well, I think it's just because it's townhouses, like my unit connects to the back end of another unit, and then I'm on the side of another unit.
Got it.
That it would, because we have a shared wall, like that wall where the window is, there's, someone who's right there on just the other side of that wall.
Yep. But again, and I would struggle too in terms of determining how much of a hardship this would be, the ventilation option, or is there an option to replace that unit with something, maybe a tilt out where the full unit would tilt out and then give you the area. And that may not be, that may be a hardship in this case. It may not be, but I don't know that, I sitting here today have a good feel for that one way or the other. I understand, ventilation is typically not difficult, but if you had to ventilate through a flat roof or something like that, and your homeowners or condo association had an issue with that, or you had to pay, take responsibility for the warranty on the roof versus venting out the side, and is that feasible? That all kind of determines how.
I have one last question, and it's probably a stupid question, but is there any way that the ventilation could be increased through the furnace air intake, or is that a stupid question?
I would say that's could be a question that could be determined by a mechanical contractor on the fresh air being provided. So it's air being provided or continuous fan were a couple of the options.
Yes, my thought was with a continuous fan or something through and I am not a builder and I don't know what I'm talking about, but it seems like I've sold a lot of those units and they are not going to let you alter that building whatsoever. So I think a window, even suggesting any modification to that isn't going to happen. I don't know about a continuous fan in a bathroom, but I do know that I sold a unit, and when we upgraded the unit to a high efficiency furnace, we had to upgrade the intake, outtake, and it provided more ventilation inside this unit. I'm just wondering, how old is the applicant's furnace, and is that something that could be considered?
I think additional combustion air coming in would be a good consideration, yes.
Is it possible to at least get quotes to find out if it's what the, one, if the association will even allow a continuous fan, and two, get a price for Ms. Smiley so that she can tell us if it is going to be a hardship? I mean, the big thing I think right now is not necessarily the fairness of it, because it's a problem, but it might be a hardship if the association says no to that fan. Then there's a whole different aspect that we're looking at.
Well, and if we would consider even combustion air for a high efficiency furnace as a possible mitigation for this, it may be that the applicant already has one. You know, another level is makeup air, which, you know, I would imagine the unit probably does not have, and nor does anyone have there, but it is very conceivable with a modern furnace that, you know, it uses outside combustion air, and we could consider that as a mitigation.
How old's your furnace, Miss Smiley? Do you know?
It's older. She's, you know, I got quotes on having everything replaced when I had this renter come in. So they said I had another few years left on it, but
Got it.
she's got a little more life, but not enough.
Got it.
Do you have any idea if it's high efficiency or not?
I mean, I've owned the unit for over almost 15 years, and it's older than that. So
Yeah, but those have been out there for 20, 25 years. You would have like plastic pipe that comes out of the furnace and either goes to a chimney or goes out the side of the unit.
it would go outside the unit. But I'm sorry, I don't want to misspeak. I don't know. But I know how expensive they are. It was at least 10 grand, which is why I said, well, let's try getting a little more work out of here.
I have a question for Brandon. Do you have a furnace clean and check report that would state the year and what type of furnace it is?
Give me just a minute and I can look into it.
This is Kristen. I'm just reviewing your application, Ms. Smiley, and it looks like you had indicated there were no hardships, primarily because the association does not allow changes to the outside of the building. So I think you were focused primarily on the windows at that time, and that you noted you would make changes if feasible and if the association allowed changes. So I'm wondering, given that, you know, we may have a mechanical option here, if that's something that you can explore, and maybe we'll come back to discuss that once you get some quotes, but maybe Brandon will have more information on the furnace and trying to solve this problem a different way.
Yeah, although if the solve is a furnace and a whole new unit there, I will be coming back with hardship. Is that, or I guess sell it, because
It's going to take me a little bit of time to locate this.
And while he's looking, Ms. Smiley, Right, did we determine the bathroom does or doesn't have an exhaust fan, or don't we know for sure?
I'm gonna say 80% that it doesn't.
Do believe that that does have a bath fan.
What's
But
that, Brendan?
I do believe it does have a bath fan. It's an interior bath fan. I don't recall there being a window in the bathroom.
Yeah,
although
that's
I
what,
could be wrong. I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of inspections since then, but I do believe that it was an interior bathroom.
that
It
would
is-
be, that would be my guess too, with an interior bathroom with no windows.
The two that I have managed both had bath fans in them, so I would assume that that's pretty standard throughout the community.
Thank you.
I'm not able to locate those records at this time. It may be, it's probably wrapped in with the paper copies that I have. I don't have those available with me here at City Hall.
So discussion with the board, I would propose we would delay a decision to get more information from the applicant and potentially some clarification from the city. So from the applicant or from the city, what furnace type we have, whether it's a high efficiency furnace and has makeup air for combustion. And then the applicant, we could potentially ask to get, information from a mechanical contractor on the feasibility of maybe even working with the existing exhaust fan to make that a full-time exhaust fan. May have to be replaced out. That would provide some equivalency in terms of the offset for the ventilation that's not required for the window. And this would be the applicant's option, but maybe you could have a window person look at your window and suggest if there is something that could give you the full ventilation by like tilt out, even though it may not be required, but they may see it as an opportunity to sell something to the every owner out there eventually. So it may be worth looking at.
I mean, I just, there's no way I'm gonna be able to.
That's fine. It's your choice, but I'm just saying the ventilation option sounds like that may not be something that's unreasonable cost wise. In fact, with a fan and potentially exhaust there, that might be a pretty economical fix.
So this means that a fan runs 24/7. Is that what the suggestion is? 'Cause I personally would not want a fan running 24/7. And, when I'm in my own unit.
So that would have to be checked with your mechanical contractor if it met the requirements, but I will tell you, there are all kinds of new products in this current market that everybody thinks of a exhaust fan as being a very loud thing. They have very quiet exhaust fans now. So that might be something that might be more reasonable for you to look into and less costly than some of these other options that you might be looking into further, I guess.
Would a ceiling fan suffice? like in a bedroom ceiling fan, or would that not meet any standards?
No, I don't think it would meet the requirements.
I think the unit already has a ceiling fan as well, Lisa.
And then the last thing I'd request is that we get the actual, dimensions taken by the city and the calculation, just so we know how far off this is.
If Marnie's fine with that, I can swing by anytime during the work week and take another measurement and more pictures. And I can look at the bathroom exhaust fan just so we can get that, and I can look at the furnace and answer your further questions to those.
Yeah, my current renter had some very big COVID issues, but I think with everyone getting vaccinated that we should be in the clear, if not now, then soon. Letting people in and out of the house.
And again, this is a suggestion for the board to consider too. Yeah, that's.
Sounded suspiciously like a motion without saying it, Jerry.
It is. It can be a motion, but.
Yeah, just speaking, not quite in motion territory yet. I certainly would like to see the city's suggestions explored. I'm not sure, Marnie, if you've had a chance to do that. I think, again, you were focused more on the window, and I can understand from a condo association standpoint, there's a uniformity there that might be challenging. However, given that the building requirement, I think, is 10%, and we're looking for 4%, that's a pretty big deviation to not even meet the 4%. So, I mean, certainly I would strongly encourage us to bring things as close to at least the minimum 4% for rental purposes as possible. And if we can do that during, with a quieter fan, that's certainly one of the options available to you.
So I know I'm interrupting, and my apologies, but under 8502 for ventilation, it does say the total area for ventilation shall be at least 4% of the habitable floor area of the room served. So our ordinance does talk about a 4% code selection. I've heard 10 bandied about.
And I think with the original building requirement from 1970, and I think the building was built in 1965, if I recall correctly.
It's 4% though we're talking now. That's
correct. We're just talking about 4%. I'm just saying that when the building was built, it should have been 10%, and we're way off that too. But it's more of a contextual item.
I just don't want to hold her to a 10% if our code doesn't
support. Nope, we are not holding her to 10%. Absolutely.
No.
Not. Correct.
No, if the code is more stricter back then than it is currently, we would only require the minimum code in today's world for a past more stricter code, which is 4%, not 10%.
All right, Jerry, did you want to try that in the form of a motion?
Sure. So I would make a motion that in order to, the board have more information in terms of looking at mitigation, provided the applicant's willing, we get the information on the furnace type to see if it's high efficiency, to see if it uses outside combustion air. I would ask the applicant to make some effort getting proposals or pricing on a potential offset by providing an exhaust air.
So even though that's in the bathroom, it would still be fine for that second room?
Yes.
And yeah, if the applicant wanted to look at, windows, and I realize the complexities there, but that's another option.
Not really.
Or not an option. Right, okay.
It's not really.
And then the last piece of information I was looking for was just clarity on exactly how far off we were, what the dimensions were, what percentage of actual percentage of the floor area we have in ventilation with the current scenario.
I remember it being, we were at like 3.7. Let me see if I have that note.
So the room's notated as being 127 square feet. So that means that it would have to have 5.08 for that room size.
Right. And I came up just based on the applicant's dimensions, and I don't know if they're correct. That works out to about 3.9 square feet. So it is under. It would be about a foot under.
We're getting a little outside the motion.
We are, sorry.
Sorry, we're a little rusty and out of practice. It's been a year. So Jerry, I have a motion that you're looking for 4 pieces of information. I just want to make sure that I'm stating this correctly. Getting information on the furnace type, including outside combustion air, pricing on an exhaust air fan, information on windows, and then the calculation of the percent ventilation as it currently stands.
That's it.
Kristen, can I add to that the approval from the condo association for the continuous fan? Because they may not allow that.
Is that really a concern? I mean, if you leave your bathroom fan on 24/7, I don't know that they have the right to tell you to turn it off.
Well, that's true too. But if you change the fan, is that considered an alteration to the building? That's
Okay,
what I
yeah,
was.
that may be right.
It wasn't not necessarily the type, but if you
No.
if you can't adjust your windows, you may not be able to do the fan without the
Good point.
condo approval.
Okay, a friendly amendment to add some sort of approval or review by the condo association as it relates to the fan.
Yeah, we're just looking for what the requirements would be. Is that it?
Whether that's something they would need to approve. Okay.
Correct. Do you need a second, or is that am I doing that too early?
I think I need a second, and then we can
Need a
do
second, and then you would make an amendment to the original. Yeah, sorry, I do a few of these.
same.
Jerry needs someone to second him, and then you would have a discussion, and then you would make an amendment to
Amendment to
his
the
thing,
original.
and then you would have another approval discussion, and then we would.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
We're talking here about a motion to postpone, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
So we're motion to postpone. It's been moved and seconded, correct?
It has been moved. It has not been seconded.
I can second it, Lisa Stelter.
Okay, motion to postpone and a second.
And now, if there is someone who wants to make a friendly amendment to that motion that's accepted by the movement and the supporter, then you wouldn't need to debate that if there is a friendly amendment accepted by those two parties.
Okay. So I think Angie already offered a friendly amendment. Maybe she jumped the gun a smidge
I did.
to ask whether or not the condo association would need to address any sort of fans. Is that something that's acceptable to your motion, Jerry, and your second, Lisa?
It is acceptable to me. Yes.
Acceptable to me.
All right, then I think we have the motion to postpone all of the information we're looking for with a friendly amendment. It's seconded, we've discussed. I think I'm going to go ahead and ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, motion passes. We are postponing based on all of that stuff that Deborah is going to fabulously document. All right.
What are my next steps? What kind of timelines are we working with? What if the span option is like not approved, or it's like $10,000 like the other thing? And I'm gonna be back in front of you guys either way, it sounds like, right?
Right. So, and feel free to jump in. Someone, normally we hold these meetings monthly, or we have time on our calendar. So I guess, I would plan to meet back here next month if we can gather this information. I know condo associations may or may not meet that quickly. So see what we can get in the next month in terms of the furnace type. It sounds like Brandon is able to do that whenever during the week. Get a price on the exhaust fan if you wish to move forward with a windows or not, and then the calculation, which sounds like could all be done during that same visit. And then depending on the pricing, I guess you, Marty, would come forward with a plan of whether or not that's something that you're able to do, or whether it would meet the hardship or one of the items for appeal, practical difficulties or undue hardship, or how it would not jeopardize the intent of the housing code or public health and safety.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, what happens to the other 29 renters for the past 20 years that haven't had to deal with this?
I believe these cases are held independently from any other people brought into it. And that's why you're here in front of the board. So there may be issues there, which we're not totally sure on at this point. But this is specifically for your apartment. I would say though, if you find something that works, if I might add, you find something that works and you want to move forward with it, and it'll be done by a permit, and we would, if it worked, we would approve it. And the need to come back to the board wouldn't be necessary if you're able to complete that process.
Okay. I think I understand that. Okay.
All right. Do you have any other questions?
No, I don't think so. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Are there any other items before I entertain a motion to adjourn? All right. Seeing none, who wants to do it?
I motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Thanks, Angie. Second? Jerry. Jerry,
Second.
second? All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye-bye.